Okay, the hearing will now reconvene. I think Dr. Malone has been mentioned a couple times, and I think I've given him the opportunity to be sworn in and defend himself. So, Dr. Malone, do you swear the testimony you give before the subcommittee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
I'll let you make your statement.
Various comments to be made about intent and meaning concerning, in particular, 3 tweets, or 3, they're not actually tweets. They're part of a weekly roundup of memes that my wife and I publish through our Substack, malone.news. We put out, over the last 4 years, thousands of essays. And we get a little bit of a break. We put them out 7 days a week, but we get a little bit of a break on Fridays and Sundays by doing a roundup of memes that other people have posted previously. They're sourced from many different places, and we typically cluster them around topic areas. Now, unfortunately, the morning, and just a little more context, of course, I speak here as a private party, even though I am appointed as a special government employee, serve at the discretion of the Secretary on the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I have 30 years of experience in vaccine development. I have multiple fundamental patents and discoveries, of which 6 have to do with mRNA vaccines. They were all filed between 1990 and 1991 that have subsequently issued. Those are the foundational documents in RNA vaccination history. They go back to my original invention disclosure about the use of RNA as a drug at the Salk Institute, working in Inder Verma's lab in the molecular biology and virology laboratories of the Salk Institute, circa 1987. This predates the work of Carrico and Weissman by well over a decade. mRNA vaccines were reduced to practice at Vical in approximately 1991. Again, published. I hold over 100 papers, thousands and thousands of citations. I'm recognized internationally for my work. And as I say, it goes far beyond mRNA vaccines. I've been asked to testify at the World Health Organization twice. I played a key role in bringing forward the new health Public Health Agency of Canada vaccine for Ebola and got it sold to the company Merck because I believed Merck was the most appropriate firm to further develop that vaccine, and I helped get hundreds of millions of dollars of federal funding to support the development of that Ebola vaccine at Merck, which was subsequently licensed. I am a vaccinologist. I am an immunologist. I am trained as a pathologist. I taught in medical school pathology for decades. But when I spoke about medical ethics early on in the COVID crisis, and the fact that coercion, compulsion, and enticement were not consistent with the norms of medical ethics, a discipline that I've been trained in extensively because I do clinical research, that led to my being asked to comment about the technology for RNA vaccination, having developed it. And that led to an incredible wave of hate and blacklisting and defamation. Now, among those were many articles from, say, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Atlantic Monthly, Business Insider, et cetera, et cetera. But the consequence of this was that my consulting business that had been operating for over 20 years was destroyed. It's not the first time that I've been a whistleblower and had my profession destroyed. Unlike some of these folks, as physicians that were unwilling to speak out, I have spoken out. I spoke out in particular about the death that occurred at UPenn, having to do with Jesse Gelsinger and the use of adenovirus vectored gene therapy. And when I did that, I destroyed my academic career, which is why I transitioned to working primarily with the US Army, particularly working in biodefense. I have many friends within the biodefense sector, have worked in there for years, have secret clearance from the Department of Defense, have been involved in virtually every major biodefense vaccine product that has been developed for the U.S. military. But I destroyed, again, my consulting business by speaking out about what I was observing, particularly about the bioethics of the mandates, the coercion, and enticement that occurred. And since then, I've had to find some way to make a living. And the way that I make a living as a licensed physician is to publish a Substack essay once a day, day after day after day, year after year after year. And as I said, every Friday and every Sunday, my wife and one of our associates pulls together memes from the prior week, assembles them around topic areas, and publishes them. Unfortunately, the morning, and your initial statements conflated this, the timeline. The morning of Friday, when this unfortunate event occurred at the CDC, we published one of the memes of many, including one that referenced you and your attacks on Janine Piero, accusing her of being a conspiracy theorist. But in that collection of memes, there was one that used a metaphor for random chance with severe outcomes. That metaphor was Russian roulette. Russian roulette is a metaphor. It is just like any form of roulette, only it has a very severe outcome. And that particular meme meant to make a point that when you have a random event with a severe outcome, it can appear statistically to be inconsequential, but in fact, it has a major impact. Hence, the chamber with one bullet in a revolver and the statement that 5 out of 6 would agree that Russian roulette is safe. It is a metaphor. It is not a violent indication. It had no indication of any weapon being pointed at anybody. Then on the following Sunday, after the event that occurred approximately 5 p.m. at the CDC, and I concur with you and have expressed as a member of the ACIP to CDC my deep regret about what transpired. But the following Sunday, 2 of the memes in the collection referenced Elizabeth Warren's statement that one doesn't need 20 rounds to be a hunter. If you need 20 rounds, you're not a good hunter. And that provoked a lot of response from Second Amendment supporters. And 2 of those responses we happened to collect and post together. One of them specifically referenced the senator and made a statement, the meme went, well, she's saying if you need 20 rounds to be a hunter, you're not a very good hunter. And the response was, if you need to disarm the population, then you're not a very good governor. The other one was the one that you've posted. I don't believe that's an automatic weapon, but I'm not a specialist. I don't actually own any guns except for a couple pellet guns that I used to kill rodents on my horse farm in Central Virginia, about 10 miles from the former home of James Madison that was cited earlier as a strong supporter of an armed populace and the Second Amendment. But I'm not a gun nut. I don't carry guns. The meme was referring to the senator's facetious statement, and it was poking fun back at her. And I think most would agree that humor is a very effective way to resolve tension and to discuss sensitive political topics. And our Friday Funnies and Sunday Strip are probably what is paying most of the bills now and allowing me to buy hay for my horses, because my audience really enjoys them. That's all they were, was meme collections, humor, by the way, free speech, and none of those were ones that we originated, by the way. And none of them had anything to do with inciting violence. You made a statement earlier that I have advocated violence against scientists. I object to that. I haven't advocated violence for anybody. And those memes do not advocate violence. The first one refers to basically a quirk in statistics, and the second one refers to a political statement from Senator Elizabeth Warren, which was intended on her part to be humorous, and the responses were also intended as humor. Thank you for allowing me to comment on your, let's say, and by the way, I think you also said on MSNBC that I was unqualified to serve on the ACIP. When I heard that, it was brought to my attention moments after you said it, I called up your office and I said, you know, the senator probably has never read my CV. Can I come in and talk to one of your staff at your office and go over this, thinking that there must be a misunderstanding? And I was given the number, the contact information, email, to set up a meeting with one of your staffers. And I would have been glad to drive up here from my farm in Central Virginia and meet with one of your staffers, go over my CV, and discuss your concerns. Unfortunately, they never got back to me. So for me, by the way, Senator Blumenthal, I used to be a registered Democrat. I grew up in the Central Coast of California. What I've observed during the Biden administration completely turned me around, like many people, like Sasha Stone, like many people in this audience. Regarding the statements that were made earlier by the young doctor, in which he cited a tweet that I put out. Actually, my wife reprimanded me. She thought that was a little too edgy, where I commented on Anthony Fauci seeking refuge in Siena, Italy. Now, how do I know about that? Because I go to Italy a lot, and I was approached by two whistleblowers, including one from the Policemen's Union, that has been tracking Anthony Fauci's movements within Italy, and told me about a number of things that he has been doing and asked me to get that information back to the government. So I was aware of his movements in Italy, hence the comment. And regarding my comment about Lena Wen and the former director of the CDC, the former director has repeatedly lied to the American public. And then after resignation, or whatever we want to call it, has gone completely silent. Not be heard of, no testimony, no request for forgiveness, no acknowledgement of those lies. And more about those lies, I suspect, may come out soon. I speculate, because I'm not able to speak about what we know at the ACIP. Regarding Lena Wen, she made a series of statements about what is essentially violence that she believed should be done to the unvaccinated during COVID. I'd like Lena Wen to apologize. I'd like to know where Lena Wen is. I'd like to know what she's doing right now. Not because I want to cause her any violence or harm, but I'd like her to be held accountable. I'd like both of them to be asked, why did you say these things during this crucial time? These things that caused so much pain, that caused so much harm, that was so divisive, that politicized public health during the COVID crisis unnecessarily. Why did you say those things? Do you regret them now? Do you have any sense of what you did? That's why I'd like to know where they are. I'd like to have them stand up and acknowledge to the American public that they did wrong. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and to address these comments, and I'm glad to respond to any question you happen to want to ask Senator Blumenthal, recognizing that I am under oath.
Dr. Malone, Senator Blumenthal, have any questions?
Just a couple of questions. I just want to make sure I have the facts right here. First of all, let me say I was unaware that you called my office. If you want to sit down, I'd be happy to do so.
And I'm glad to do so anytime. Thank you.
Second, you're a member of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices in the CDC, correct?
Correct, sir.
You were appointed by Secretary Kennedy after he fired all 17 of the previous members, correct?
which I had no role in doing.
My view, tell me if I'm wrong, is the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, also known as ASAP, is a position of immense public trust.
That's your opinion. Personally, I think the ASIP is a federal FACA committee which should be immune from intimidation and which has had mission creep. That's my opinion. I think that this committee and the sense of importance attributed to this committee is grossly overplayed. The committee's role is...
The committee has responsibility for deciding...
No, it doesn't. The committee has responsibilities for advising the director of the CDC only.
Deciding, in its view, what vaccines should be recommended, and then providing that advice to the secretary or to the CDC, correct?
That is one interpretation. I take a much narrower view of the charter of the ASIP, having had to study it.
Let me just say, I view this committee as one of public trust. I view it as seriously responsible for providing advice to the secretary, and that's the reason why he wanted you there. And I have no quarrel with your expressing your views as a matter of First Amendment rights, whether they were intended for humor or some other reason. But in a position of public trust, you have a responsibility to consider the practical effect of your words beyond just your personal consideration. And you may have a First Amendment right to say what you wish, and you do. I would defend that right. But as a matter of a public official in a position of public trust, the posts that you did had consequences.
In your mind.
I'm sorry?
In your mind, you made an interpretation about
Well, let
that.
me
The
just
bulk
ask
of
you-
Americans recognize humor.
Your comment is that on the morning of August 8th, hours before a gunman fired 200 rounds at the CDC,
All true.
you put up a post with a gun, and we had it here.
Yes, it was posted. You shared it with us at the beginning of the meeting.
And that's a pretty threatening post, I would say.
If you believe that's threatening, then clearly you haven't watched Netflix. We are constantly bombarded by violent images. They are part of our culture. That is not a threatening post, in my
And
opinion.
unfortunately, we are also all too commonly experiencing gun violence in this country, which
And
does
that's
not,
a fascinating
which
point
not
because of the
condone-
linkage between gun violence and certain medications.
which does not condone any person in a position of public trust doing something that could in some way normalize it or make it okay. Let me just ask
So you infer that that normalizes gun violence, that post about random chance.
So we're going to have,
Let me just,
we're going to have a
Mr.
vote.
Chairman, I want
Let's
to
wrap
finish.
this up.
Because
Let's wrap
here,
this
I'll
up.
end it with
Wrap
this
up.
question.
Wrap it up.
48 hours after that gunman killed a police officer guarding the CDC, as a member of the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices for the CDC, you posted that second one here.
Together with another one that made it very clear that both were about Elizabeth Warren's statement, which is the one at the top of that meme.
So my question to you, Dr. Malone, is, as a member of that advisory committee to the CDC, did you think about how the dedicated employees of the CDC, the scientists and researchers and public health advocates, would take that kind of post, given that they had just been through one of the most traumatic experiences of their lifetime. They're building under lockdown because there was an armed gunman firing at them and killing a police officer. Did you consider how they would react?
And Senator Blumenthal, I'm under oath. And the truth is, no, I didn't. I had to go feed the horses, take care of the farm. My wife put together the memes. I looked through them, and I said, go ahead and post it. Now, in terms of the traumatization of CDC members, they live in Atlanta. I used to live in North Atlanta.
do you regret-
Gunfire is normal in Atlanta. It happens all the time.
Don't you
And-
regret those posts?
I don't.
I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Probably wouldn't have even noticed if you wouldn't have blown it out of proportion. But anyway, the record for this hearing will remain open for 15 days until Wednesday, September 24th, 2025 at 5 p.m. For the submission of statements and questions for the record, this hearing is adjourned. Ooh.